you see fear? You come at me with sword and spear, but I come in the name of the God of Israel. Yes! Right between the eyes! Did you see that? Anyone? Of course not. Okay then, one more time. Tally, now! I'm trying to protect us from this Philistine. Whoa! No, not that way. Come on. Back to your mom. Right, Philistine. Oh, wait! Right between the eyes. Oh, of course. That one you saw. Tally! Tally, no! I'm coming, girl! Whoa, easy! Shira! I will bring her home safely. Whoa! Tally, wait, no! There you go. I'm almost through. Okay. Oh! Tally, stop! No! Oh, that doesn't help. That does. Stop. Thank you. 할래니 נפשי ישובב ינחני במגע לצדק למען שמו.
What you have just watched is a concept short for a musical animated feature film on the story of David, and our vision is to tell it in the same quality as movies like Tangled and Frozen. This is more than a movie. This is a movement to join people from all over the world to try and make the world's most watched animated theatrical release. You can show your interest in investing by going to angel.com/David. Growing up in the wild of Africa was the most incredible experience, and it was there that I bumped into the most amazing character of God and fell in love with him. At the same time, I was reading David's story, and it just really struck me. On one particular canoe trip on the Zambezi River, where you could canoe for days and not see a human being, I was reading the scriptures and I read, "I found in David, son of Jesse, a man after my own heart." And I thought how amazing it would be to do a film that could give people all over the world a glimpse into God's heart. We grew up on a farm that had no electricity. I only saw my first film when I was 14 years old, and it was such an electric experience. I was blown away by the power of film and the power of story to connect with people and move people. And from that day, I became passionate to tell a story on the life of David. The question is, can a group of farmers from Africa make a global hit that's going to reach the world? This is in and of itself an incredible David versus Goliath story.
There's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And in order to tell a story as big as David, we need people from all around the world to come together.
Over the last 20 years, Jackie and I have just been blown away by how God has miraculously drawn talent to us. Now we have the most awesome, high-quality team.
Like Nathan Stanton, who spent 22 years at Pixar, Jonas Myron, a Grammy Award-winning musician, Borja Montoro, a Disney animation alumni, other talent from massive films like Big Hero 6, Tangled, Finding Nemo, Zootopia, Moana, Prince of Egypt, and many more.
Our first breakout hit is Jungle Beat, an incredible and beautiful show. On our YouTube channel, we get over 2 billion views a year. We've got 7 million subscribers. We also recently released our first animated feature film called Jungle Beat the Movie. And incredibly, it was on Netflix's top 10 for over 2 weeks, both live action and animated feature films in the US. We are also doing a theatrical release of Jungle Beat the Movie in China later this year, and are in production of Jungle Beat the Movie 2. What really excites me is if you take Jungle Beat the Movie, we produced that for $5 million. And I'd really encourage you to go and watch it on Netflix to see the quality of movie we produced for that price. And just imagine the quality of movie we could produce on David with the proper budget. With David, we considered the route of engaging with Hollywood, and there is significant interest down that route. But we really felt that from a creative point of view, we need to stay the head and not the tail of this project. And it's a slingshot, like David went with a slingshot to fight Goliath. We really believe that the strategy needs to be outside the Hollywood system for it to work. In this vein, we are thrilled to be working with Angel Studios for distribution. Angel Studios did the TV series The Chosen, which has become the world's biggest TV series on the life of Jesus Christ. The Chosen has generated hundreds of millions of views and tens of millions of dollars. We've already got $19 million of investments and need another $35 million to complete this project. We need your help to bring God's heart to the world through the story of David. Go to angel.com/David to show your support for this project now. And let's join together to try and make the world's most watched animated theatrical release. Welcome everyone to this live stream about David, or the making of an animated feature film about David. It's so awesome to have you with us today, and I'm particularly excited about this live stream. We've got some very exciting things and a very exciting guest on this live stream with us. A few welcomes before we start, specific welcomes to the fans and the members of Israel 365. A very warm welcome to you guys. So good to have you with us on this live stream today. And I'm just going to read a couple of the others. From the Blessed Media fans, from you as a group, welcome. I'm So Blessed Daily page, welcome to you guys. Raise Up page, thank you for joining this live stream, and welcome to you guys. And then the Victory Today page, thank you guys as well for joining us. Tonight we've got, I'm going to bring on our production designer a little bit later, Linan Good. He's an amazing guy. He's done headed up a lot of our research trips to Israel. And the big word you're going to hear tonight is authenticity. I'm also super excited. We're going to introduce Rabbi Tuly Weisz later in the evening, or the day your time. And he's just one of the most respected and incredible rabbis he lives in Jerusalem, in Israel. Such a wonderful guy. And one of our passions is authenticity. And so he's agreed to come on board and engage with us as a cultural consultant, a historical consultant. And we're just so excited to welcome him to the project. We'll introduce him later though. I also just want to say why, quickly at the beginning of every live stream, why a movie on David? And there's a lot of reasons. Warrior, shepherd, poet, king. He's one of the human history's most incredible and exciting characters. Amazing musician. We know he is one of the world's most prolific songwriters. He wrote half the Psalms in the Bible. Just the most incredible character, full of energy, adventure. It's a no-brainer to tell a story on his life. But the bigger reason I wanted to say for me, and it came from 20 years ago, is in Acts. It talks about, I found in David, son of Jesse, a man after my own heart. And so our passion for this story is like, if we can tell the story of David well, it'll give us as humans a glimpse of God's heart. That God is not some stuffy, boring, austere figure, but this energetic, passionate, kind, full of music and romance and fun. That's God. And David's life just exemplifies that, and such a beautiful story to tell. So that's the passion behind telling David's story. Of course, we want to make it super entertaining. We want to make it up there. We talk about it being a hybrid between Prince of Egypt and Tangled, the fun, the energy, and the humor of Tangled, but then the beauty and the authenticity of Prince of Egypt. So we want to make an entertaining film, but behind that is the heart of David. And then the other question people may ask is, why animation? And I want to say that animation has this incredible power to cross race, cultural, age, and gender barriers, just better than any other medium. It's the most incredible medium. If you look every year, there's probably 1,000 live-action films made and 15 animated feature films made. And if top 10 in the box office every year, there'll be 3 or 4 animated feature films in the top 10. And that just tells you the incredible hitting power of animation. The other thing I love about animation, what I said there, the power to cross race, cultural, age, and gender barriers. Just teeing in on the age aspect for one moment. Whether you're 4 or whether you're 94, you can enjoy a great animated feature film. So that's why animation. I just think it gives the story of David such incredible reach. So that's why we're making it. That's why animation. The other thing, for those of you who don't know, at this stage we are in a gauging interest phase, a pledging phase. And if you want to find out more about the project, you can go to angel.com/David, and you'll find out a lot more about the project there. I'm just looking down in the corner. So far for this round, we're trying to raise $30 million eventually. And so far the pledges are up to over $4.6 million. So if you'd like to know more, if you'd like to support the project, you can. And that you can actually you can go on that page, find out more. And if you'd like to pledge and support, you can do that. So the other exciting news, we are growing in our social media presence as we talk about this movie. We are in production, by the way. We aim to finish by 2024. But we've just launched on TikTok. And TikTok is a very exciting and dynamic platform. We want to use it to talk a lot about the crazy team behind David, some of the behind-the-scenes stuff, and just really get you into the feel of what's going on in the making of David. I'm going to show you one video now that just gives you a little bit of an insight into, for those of you who are not TikTok fans, this will give you a bit of an idea of one of the pieces we've just put on TikTok. So have a watch and enjoy.
This is the team behind David.
Linton, Sam, Ethan, Stephen, Sean, Mary, Matt, me, John, Dan, Matthew,
Valentina, Christine, Megan,
Yaku, Tim, Jonathan, Ben, Steven,
Robin,
David, Tim, Esther, Chris, Dion,
Brent, Amy, Carrie, Jackie.
Paul Cunningham.
Yeah, so there's a bit of fun. It's such an awesome team. I just want to say that while we're talking about teams. So yeah, TikTok, though, about TikTok, go look at our TikTok. And if you can share and support it, it'll be awesome. There's going to be a lot happening on TikTok in the near future. But what it leads me on to talk very quickly before I invite Linton onto screen is team. And one of Jackie's my wife, and one of our passions is, and she loves an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. And if you want to go far, go together. It's an African proverb. And what I love about that is team. And the team that's been building around David is just incredible. It's been building for many, many years. It's the most dynamic team, people who've worked on the most amazing projects. But at the heart of it is a group of people who are crazy enough to take on this project and make it. And our passion is genuinely to make a movie that's going to be best of the best in animation. So just to say again, and I'll say it once or twice just because live streams, people are joining and coming and going a little bit, that if you'd like to find out more about the project and support it, you can go to angel.com/David. And that's where you can find out a bit more about the project. What I'm going to do tonight, I said, the one word we want to focus on is authenticity. And we have got the most incredible production designer. His name is Linan Good. And I'm going to invite him on screen. And Linton, come on screen, and I'm going to say a few things, and then I'm going to talk to you and ask you a few things. Linton, welcome. Nice to have you with us on this live stream again. And I just want to say, Linton, no, pleasure. And one thing I want to say to those of you on this live stream, Linton is passionate about many things of the David film, but one of his particular passions is authenticity and research. And he's headed up 3 out of our 4 research trips to Israel. And Linton, I just want you to talk a little bit about why are we passionate about this and our passion for authenticity and doing our research. And then you can talk a little bit about the trips we did to Israel. But just start off why you feel authenticity to this project in particular is so important, and why we've actually engaged a guy like Rabbi Tuly Weisz to join us. Just talk to your passion for authenticity, why it's important for David and the making of this film.
Thanks, Phil. Just to say, I was so thankful and privileged to serve the team in this way. Why is research so important? I mean, it touches every aspect of what we do on this film. And firstly, my job was to serve the team by being not to know everything, but to be willing to look into everything. So as the needs of the story arise, like for instance, you may have the script might say, the scene takes place in a house and a character lights a lamp, for instance. But that leads to a whole bunch of questions. What kind of lamp? What does the house look like? We're dealing with 3,000 years ago at the time of David. So it's a very strange place to our modern sensibilities. So that's what the purpose of going to and meeting these people, these amazing guides and experts that we did, was to really help us to be able to answer the questions that the story and that the team needs. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and literally, I can think of literally. I was going to say I can think of 100 examples of. Well, there's so much depth to the research and the trips we did. But I'll give one. I don't know why this one springs to mind, but I remember one of the storyboarders had one of the guys eating chicken on the screen, and Linton was like, "Guys, they weren't eating chicken in that day and age." And he went and did a whole lot of research and created this whole menu for us of the food groups, which is cool because even down to the food they eat and the chairs they sit on. We were passionate about making sure it was authentic. And Linton, your passion for that is incredible. Linton, tell us you've done 4 trips. Just tell us some of the highlights of those trips, or maybe 1 or 2 highlights, and why those trips have actually been really important in getting to the bottom and getting to the depths of being authentic. Yeah. So just tell us a little bit about those trips to Israel and maybe 1 or 2 of your favorite or example memories of why those trips are important.
Sure, yeah. So it was really important to, making a film on this incredibly niche time of David's and Saul's life was to really prioritize going to places that were really relevant to the story that were being told. So we got to go to amazing places like the city of David, where they were excavating what they believe are the remains of David's palace, or the site of the palace. And to see the original boundaries of the city and, what it was like at that time, you can still get quite a good picture of the scale of architecture and construction. So that was really amazing. And also to go to places like the Valley of Elah, which are pretty much untouched. There's no buildings on top of it. There's no modern architecture. You can go and see it almost exactly as it was at the time of David. And stand in the place.
Have you got some images?
Yes.
While we're talking, I think you've got some images of the Valley of Elah. Yeah, maybe it'd be worth just playing those while you're talking about the Valley of Elah. If they've got
that'd be great.
So maybe talk to that image.
There's a long-standing tradition in Christian art and religious art of showing the battle of David and Goliath in this dry and dusty valley, but when you actually go to the Valley of Elah and see it for yourself, at the time of the battle, we know it was spring, because that's when the kings went out for battle. It was the most comfortable time to go to war. And this is what it looks like. It's an incredibly lush green valley with the river running through it. And it's just the polar opposite of what you've always grown up seeing of David fighting Goliath. And that's why research is so important here, because it gives us such a special opportunity to show this encounter in a new light for people and to really transport them to a place they've never been. You can see here the flowers in the Valley of Elah. It's at the time of David and Goliath's battle, it was in bloom, and lots of beautiful flowers in the valley. So it's very unexpected. And and also some of the other work that I did on the film is I've been blessed to be an artist myself. So not only to research, but to also compile all of that research into art for the team. So I did a lot of drawings, and you might be able to put some of them up on the screen briefly. But I did a lot of drawings that were focused on capturing all the information that we saw on our trips from guides and from the museum and putting it all together. So there was a very specific type of oil lamp that was at use in David's lifetime. So to kind of sift through all the photos that have all these different eras oil lamps, and then I chose to draw it out so that this isn't the style of the film, this isn't the look of David, but it is just reference art that I created so that when the team had a question like, what do we put in the kitchen in David's house? Or, how do we carry all the grain to different places when you have characters doing different things? They would just be able to go to one place that has all the answers they need. And this was an ongoing process. As soon as there was a new problem, like a scene where people are eating, then I would kind of dive in there and try and do some art that gives the team as many options as they could possibly need to have fun and do the art that they want to do. This is just to show the kind of focus that we put on trying to create a really visually interesting world based on research and authenticity to the time of David.
No, thanks, Linton. And obviously there's so much to share, and we won't go down that whole rabbit hole now because we're going to save time for Rabbi Tuly. But just to say thank you, that just gives people a bit of a glimpse of like the tip of the iceberg of what goes into the research. Before we go to Rabbi Tuly, people are probably joining the live stream. So one thing I'd like to do is just to show the demo once more. And I just want to talk about the demo. The demo is not going to be in the actual film. It was done as a proof of concept and to give an idea of the heart of David and the heart of this film. So as you watch this demo, it's really there just to show you the quality of animation we're aiming at, and we actually even want to go higher, but also to show you the heart of the character. So watch the storytelling in this demo. Just to say, for those of you who don't know, we're pretty much more than halfway through production. Our budget is $55 million. We've already raised $25 million, and now we're in the phase of going out and trying to raise $30 million to finish the film. And we are in production. We're aiming to finish production by the end of 2024 and release the film early 25, and that's the goal. Just to say, that might sound long to some of you, but animated feature films typically take between 4 to 7 years to complete. So it's a little bit like a fruit orchard. You've got to apple and fertilize an apple tree orchard for 5 years, and then you get apples, but then you get apples for 20 years. And that's the beauty of animation. You've got to really dig deep and you've got to go long, but it's an amazing product when you finish it, if you do it well. And that's our passion. So if you want to support us, I'll just say it once a few more times during the live stream. You can go to angel.com/David. But while that's coming up, let's just go and watch the demo one more time. And then after that, we're going to get to the main event of this live stream, which is to welcome Rabbi Tuly to join us. So let's just watch that demo and then we'll be back with you.
Look into my eyes. Do you see fear? You come at me with sword and spear, but I come in the name of the God of Israel.
Yes! Right between the eyes! Did you see that? Anyone? Of course not. Okay then. One more time. Tally, not now. I'm trying to protect us from this Philistine. Whoa. No, not that way. Come on. Back to your mom. Right, Philistine. Oh, wait! Right between the eyes. Oh, of course. That one you saw. Tally! Tally, no! I'm coming, girl! Whoa, easy! Shira! I will bring her home safely. Whoa! Hey, Tally, wait, no! There you go. I'm almost there. Okay. Oh! Tally, stop! No! Oh, that doesn't help. That does. Stop. Thank you. Yena haleni nafshi yeshove yancheni b'mgalet tzedek leman shemo.
Oh, thanks so much. For those of you who just joined us, I hope you enjoyed that demo, which is a proof of concept for the David film. And for those of you who just joined us, if you want to find out more about the project and how you can support or pledge for the project, you can go to angel.com/David. And there's a lot of information there. But yeah, just thanks so much for everyone who has already pledged on this live stream. It's so important to partner with you guys. And yeah, again, just going to say that African proverb of my wife's, which if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, together. As someone, they're just posting pledged $500. So thank you, because this is really an adventure together. It's a community effort. We've assembled the best team, but we need the wider community to be part of this adventure and this journey with us. So if you want to be part of this adventure, please do go to angel.com/David. But But what I'm really excited about, Linton, and this is something that I just can only put down as a God thing, is the meeting with Rabbi Tuly Weisz. Passions, as you've heard tonight, is just story is our passion. We want to tell an incredible, energetic, fun story, but we really want a story off the foundation of authenticity and just for it to be deep in its foundations and that level. So Linton and I and the team were just so excited with Rabbi Tuly Weisz, and Rabbi, I'd like to invite you onto the live stream now and just to join us. Thank you so much for your time. Rabbi Tuly, it's so amazing to have you on this live stream. A big welcome to you.
Thank you, Phil. Shalom to all of the viewers here who are watching us on Facebook and on YouTube.
And Rabbi, maybe you could kick off just telling us a bit about yourself, your life's work, Israel 365, the Bible you've been involved in, just a bit about who you are and your life's work and Israel 365, just to give the viewers a bit of context as to who you are.
Well, thank you, Phil. I appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit. I'm a rabbi from Columbus, Ohio. Originally, I used to live there, and 10 years ago, my family moved to Israel. We made Aliyah. We moved to the land of our forefathers. And I grew up, though, in the United States in a very typical Jewish community. And I think thinking about, this film and my upbringing and like what is the connection and how am I prepared for this role. There's two things that I think have a typical Jewish upbringing that might have prepared me for the role and helping provide a little authenticity for the David Project. Number one is that as a Jewish guy, so I grew up surrounded by a lot of Davids. My biggest role model in my life was my grandfather, who was named David. He was the rabbi of the congregation and that I grew up in. And he was a legendary leader, larger than life. And when we were very close. He really shaped me in so many ways. When I turned 13, so the Jewish boys have a bar mitzvah when we turn 13, and he gave me a very small present, a very little present, but he said, I want you to carry it with you always, and he gave me this. This is a book of Psalms. I'll hold it up to the camera. It's a tiny little book, and it says here in Hebrew, Tehillim, the book of Psalms. You could see the tiny little writing, and since he gave it to me when I was 13, I've kept it with me literally every single day. And I feel like it provides me a connection to him and a connection to his namesake, King David. And so naturally, when we have 6 children, we have 3 girls and 3 boys, and when our first son was born, we naturally named him, of course, David. And so the name David is something that, has always been. And then the second thing that is typical in a Jewish upbringing, besides knowing a lot of Davids, is that I didn't know a lot of Christians. I didn't know any Christians really growing up, even in Columbus, Ohio, in the Middle West. And I think that's kind of typical because the Jewish people, we've kept to ourselves to a very large degree and haven't intermingled, at least the observant, the Orthodox community. And so I really didn't know a lot of Christians until much later in life. I went through the whole Jewish system. I went, from kindergarten, from 5 years old to 25 years old. I went through the Jewish day school and high school and Jewish university and rabbinical school. I even went to a Jewish law school. And so until I was 25 years old, I really didn't interact with a lot of Christians. And only as an adult did I start to meet Christians and build relationships with Christians over our shared heritage, the Bible. And there's what, Phil, I think you're going to like this. I was thinking about the one thing that's so special for me as a Jew working net with Christians is that there's a psalm, one of the most beautiful psalms in it's chapter 27 in the book of Psalms. I have here the Israel Bible, which maybe we could talk a little bit more about. This is a book that I worked on for many years. It's all about Israel in the Bible. And if you look at Psalm 27, it says, a psalm of David, God is my light and my help. Whom should I fear? God is the stronghold of my life. Whom should I dread? It's talking about courage, something we've seen in the clip, how courageous David was. And it says something really unbelievable, that one thing that I ask of the Lord, here in verse 4, one thing I ask of the Lord, only this do I seek, that I should live in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze on the beauty of God and to visit his temple. Right? So the rabbis ask, well, wait a minute, David, you asked for one and then you snuck in two. Right? And in Hebrew,
Love it.
there's like a really important lesson. When you start to read the Bible in Hebrew, it says that I want to dwell in the house of the Lord, meaning permanently, and then I want to visit the temple. And so, one of the Jewish lessons interpretations here is that we, and especially when it comes to the relationship with Israel, and which is so integral to the film, is that, yes, we want to be permanently connected to Israel, but at the same time, we also want to kind of feel like a visitor. We want to experience for the first time with the eyes and the enthusiasm of the visitor. And I know that, as a Jew who grew up primarily around other Jews and only getting to know Christians as an adult, I am just so blown away at the enthusiasm that Christians have when it comes to Israel, because we, kind of take it for granted to some extent, and Christians that come to Israel and they're like, wow, this is amazing. And so I have gained so much in my recent journey over the last 10 years working with Christians. And so I'm just so excited, as you can't tell, in working, Phil, with you and with Linton and with the whole team here and trying to bring David to the world.
No, that's amazing. And just quickly tell us about that big Bible you held up. You showed us the small one, but I know you were involved in compiling that Bible. Give us a quick overview of what that is and your involvement in it.
So this is the Israel Bible, and it's something that it's like a real project, a labor of love. And I'll tell you a little bit of the backstory here, because I was a rabbi in Ohio, like I mentioned, at my grandfather's synagogue after he passed away. I was privileged to try to follow in his large footsteps, but I heard a story that it changed my life. So I'm glad to have the opportunity to sort of share the origin story of the Israel Bible, and it changed my life. 125 years ago, in like 1895, Theodor Herzl, who is, if you look him up online, he's the founder of the modern Zionist movement. And he was the first one to wake up to all of this terrible anti-Semitism that was going on in Europe at the time. And he said, we need to bring the people of Israel back to the land of Israel. And he started trying to go to the Jewish communities in Europe and say, let's go back to Israel, let's go back to Israel. And he didn't get a lot of support, actually, from the Jewish community initially. And he got so much pushback from the Ottoman Empire and the British Empire. They said, you know what, it's too complicated to bring Jews to the Middle East, but we have a beautiful tract of land, right, Phil, as you know, in Africa, right? And they wanted to give people a little tract of land in Uganda. I don't know if you know this story. It's an amazing story. And no. Theodor Herzl, so Theodor Herzl hears about this, and he brings it to the committee, and he says, well, we're not having a lot of success in resettling the promised land, but the British want to give us this tract of land in Africa, and it's beautiful, and there's great resources. And so they took the Uganda plan for a vote of the Jewish Congress at the time. And it was a very close vote. It was like 50-50. And one pastor in Chicago, Illinois, in the United States heard about this because it was in the news. It was in the newspapers. His name is William Blackstone. Again, anyone who's online now, you get to Google him. William Blackstone, Pastor William Blackstone. He hears that after 2,000 years, God has finally brought the Jewish people. We are on the cusp of something major, prophetic. And God is bringing the people back to Israel. And the Jewish people are thinking about forsaking all of that and going to Uganda. So what does he do? This pastor, he takes a Bible off of his shelf and he just starts going line by line and underlining all of the references to the land of Israel. And he sends it to Herzl, and Herzl gets this unsolicited Bible in the mail by post or by donkey or by pigeon. I don't know how they did it back then. And he decided just then and there that, you know what, it's going to be the land of Israel. And they gave up on the Uganda proposal. And I heard that story and it blew me away. And I learned so much from that story. Number one is how Christians and Jews are, after centuries of hostility, can start coming together once again in order to change history, right? And the number two is that I took a Bible off of my shelf. I was inspired by that story. So, well, how many times does Israel appear in the Bible? I wasn't even familiar because a lot of times Jews study the first 5 books, the Torah, and not necessarily the entire Hebrew Bible. And I, was guilty of that myself. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to go through it line by line, underline all the references to Israel. And I couldn't believe it, Phil. It was on every page of the Bible. It's all about Israel. And it took a Christian to point that out to Theodore Herzl, and it took a Christian to point that out to me, and it changed my life. And so I collected all of those passages and I wrote commentary, and that's what the Israel Bible is. It's a Bible, it's a Hebrew Bible that's dedicated exclusively to the land of Israel. And there are study notes here on the bottom of every page. We have the English and the Hebrew on each page, so you could read, you could learn Hebrew from the Bible. We have study notes all about the land of Israel. And so that's, I think, really why I hope to be able to play a small role in the David film and bringing Israel to life through the text of the Bible.
No, thank you. And I'm going to go over to Linton for a question. But before we do, Linton, just want to say to any of you on the live stream, if you'd like to ask questions to myself, to Linton, to the rabbi, please just pop them on the live stream, and we'll try and leave time at the end just to circle back for questions. But Linton, over to you. I know your passion is authenticity, and so I know you've got a question for the rabbi now as well.
Yeah, so just to say, right from the start, being made, researcher for the project, there was a lot of research that I knew that I could tackle, questions about anything to do with the old that we could look up, and things that we were seeing on our research trips that our guides told us and all these things. But right from the start, we knew we needed an expert advisor, a local cultural advisor project. And that's why I'm so excited to have Rabbi Tuly with us and being so willing to help us in this endeavor, because there's so many things that would be so easy to miss from a cultural standpoint, like what that aren't very obvious in the research, like what does a day in the life look like, what's important to the local community that we get right in this film, that the Jewish people can see themselves portrayed in this correct way in the light in David's story, that they recognize themselves in David's story is incredibly important to us. And one of the ways that we really needed help with that is somebody not only who's an expert in the Old Testament and the Torah, but also who is very well familiar with the Jewish traditional texts like the Mishnah and all of these. There's a rich history of oral traditions and all these things that we just aren't familiar with and could easily get wrong. And so that's why we really value your input and the richness that you can bring and the insights that you can bring. One example that came across our path recently was in the stories that we're making now, the short films that we're developing. David's harp has become quite a feature. The director wants to actually make it an heirloom of his family. So we were looking back at, okay, if it's an heirloom of his family, who made it? And so we went back a couple generations and we came across this name, Nashon, who's the son of Aminadab, and he was on the Exodus, and we thought, well, maybe he made it, and this is all just us having fun with the story. And this is an example of, in the Torah, he's just mentioned as Nashon, son of Aminadab, but in the Mishnah, his role is quite expanded, and there's a whole story around his role in there. I was wondering if you could tell us a bit more about that, Rabbi Tuly, and just those kind of exciting stories that we can have access to.
So that's a great question, Linton. And yeah, the Mishnah, for those who may not be familiar, is the rabbinic expansion of the text of the Bible. It's a commentary. It's a very lengthy commentary, and it goes along with the Talmud. The Mishnah and the Talmud go together. They were compiled roughly from like around the first century before the Common Era all the way up to the 3rd century. And so kind of around the time of Jesus and the formation of Christianity, all of this was, in the same region, all of this intellectual, spiritual creativity was just bursting. And it was a very traumatic time in history, of course, after the destruction of the temple. And so for centuries, the Torah we refer to it as the written Torah, and it was not meant to be. It was meant to be. It was meant to be written down, and then we have a oral Torah, which was the Mishnah and the Talmud that comes after, and it's an expansion. So that's what the Mishnah is. It's a commentary, like I said, on the Tanakh, on the Torah or the Tanakh. Tanakh, okay, stands for, it's 3 Hebrew letters: the Taf, T sound, the N, the Nun sound, and the Chet, the Ch, which is the Chaf, which is Tanakh, which stands for Torah, the 5 books of Moses, the Torah. And then the Nun, the N sound, is the Nevi'im, or the prophets. And then the Chaf is the Ketuvim, the writing. So traditionally, the Hebrew Bible is divided up into those 3 sections: Tanakh, the Torah, the prophets, and the writings. And so Nachshon actually is very prominent, like you said, in the Mishnah and in the Talmud. The story goes that when they got to the Red Sea, which again, we're just coming off of the holiday of Passover, just last week was the festival, the 7-day festival of Passover. And we know that commemorating the Exodus. And what happened when they got to the sea, when they got to the Red Sea? So nobody wanted to go in. Everyone said, I'm not going in. They got Egyptians, right? The Egyptians are chasing us. They're behind us. They're gaining on us. And where are we supposed to go? And Moses says, go forward. And they said, go forward? There's a raging river. Nachshon was the first one. He jumps in. And the sea split when it, for Nachshon. He was that courageous leader who put his faith completely in the hands of the Lord. And so it's fitting, it may be a stretch of the imagination, but it would certainly be fitting that David would use his musical instrument.
Yeah, it's so cool. And that was good. That's amazing. And that actually was genuinely one of David's ancestors. And then we connecting it. And then he had that courage to jump into the Red Sea, that faith. So a question from me, Rabbi, is like, what does the story of David specifically mean to you? And, what do you think the significance of a production like this might be at this time? So, his actual story, David, what does it mean to you? And, how significant, or in what way do you think this movie could be significant to the world at this time that we live in?
So, Phil, that's a great question, because, David means so many things to so many people. Probably almost everyone in the world has heard of David. And I think that's why this film is going to be amazing, because nothing like it's been done. And everybody knows the stories and loves the stories about King David. To me, when I had to think about it, so I came up with 3. David basically represents to me. The first thing that came to my mind is the underdog. Maybe I got that from reading the scripts and watching some of the. But he's the youngest of his brothers. He fights against the giant from Philistine, and yet he perseveres, which is really the story of the Jewish people, story of the modern state of Israel as well. That underdog, nobody would expect Israel to survive, and yet we're thriving. And because our power is not from our physical might, our strength is from our special relationship with God. And so that's the first thing that comes to my mind, the underdog. Second thing that's really amazing here comes from the book of Samuel, right? The book of Samuel 2, chapter 5. It's all about how David finally becomes the king. And when he becomes the king, so it's really exciting. It's like this great moment, this dramatic ending, happy ending, right? And I don't want to give away the whole story. But what happens as soon as he becomes king, it says that God is with him. David gets stronger, God is with him. And then out of nowhere, it says here in chapter 5, verse 11, that King Hiram of Tyre sends envoys to David with cedars of Lebanon, with carpenters, stonemasons, and they build a palace for David, right? And Hiram is really going to be important later on, also when Solomon finishes the temple. That relationship between Jewish King David and his non-Jewish neighbor king, right? They form a not just a bond, an alliance. They form a spiritual partnership. It's amazing. He helps him build the temple. So you have the early seeds of Jews and non-Jews kind of working together to further God's kingdom. And I think that's a part of the story that doesn't get enough attention. But finally, I think the elephant in the room, or the sheep maybe in the room, is that, of course, David is the ancestor of the Messiah. We refer in Hebrew to the Mashiach ben David, the Messiah, the son of David. Not necessarily the direct son, the descendant of King David. And this has been the point of contention for thousands of years between Jews and Christians. Who's the Messiah? Did the Messiah come? Did the Messiah not come? And it's like we've been at each other's throats as a result. And there's been centuries of persecution and anti-Semitism because we can't agree on the descendant of King David, the Mashiach, the Messiah. But we're living in a time where a Christian movie animation studio and a Christian distribution studio, Angel Studios, would even think to reach out to a rabbi and to include the Jewish people in the portrayal of David for the next generation, for the children, and to make it entertaining and to make it inspiring, and just to even think, because we've fought over the Bible for so long. As soon as Christianity emerged, unfortunately, there was a fight over whether the New Testament should replace the Old Testament. And even until this very day, I mean, that's still a fight that's going on. But obviously, Phil, yourself, and the team that you're leading, and all of the backers of this film, I think, who are excited to turn the page in the history and sort of turn the page in the Bible, and to sort of write the next chapter of the Bible, which for so many Jews and Christians, the modern day state of Israel and the prophecies that are being fulfilled on a daily basis is really the next chapter of the Bible that we are writing together.
No, that's amazing. And I love David. He's such a unifying character, like you say, because whether you've got no faith, he's an underdog story. You can relate to him. Whether you're from the Jewish community or the Christian community or even from Islam, it's like he's a character who unifies us to work together. And his story is just so inspiring. And so, it's really exciting to be working with you, Rabbi, and just really connecting with the Jewish community. And really, I think it's going to bring such richness to this story and this journey. Linton, I'm going to cross over to you to your next question. So I don't know if you want to fire away another question for Rabbi there.
Sure. I'm just, what excites you most about the research that you've seen the team has been doing, and how it's translating into the creative expression in this film and in the scripts that you've read and all these things?
Well, it was really exciting for me to read a movie script. I felt kind of like like a Hollywood movie. It was exciting, and I also just was able to really appreciate, from the first words, how much care and love goes into every single word on that page. And each word is chosen carefully. And in my imagination, I'm able to sort of see the scenes playing out because you describe it so clearly. And it's cute and it is emotional at the same time. And again, just as somebody who's very committed to biblical literacy and trying to make the Bible as relevant as possible, which is not always easy. King David is easy, maybe, but there's a lot of other sections that are challenging. Yet you have done such an incredible job of making the Bible super exciting, super relevant, and that's just really what the world needs right now, what our children need right now.
So Linton, fire away with your next question, which is linked to that.
Linked to that, you mentioned challenges. Like, what do you foresee as potentially one of the biggest challenges for a production of this nature? And how can having advice from the local community in Israel help us to address those kind of challenges?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And so even I think the title of this live stream was something about authenticity. Authenticity, that's the buzzword here, but authenticity, if you think about it, is really a balancing act, because if you're not authentic enough, if David, pulls out a drone and starts, shooting Goliath with laser beams, it feels inauthentic. It's a fraud, right? But on the other hand, too much authenticity might be off-putting, because it has to be entertaining, it has to be interesting. You don't want to alienate anybody. And so, as somebody who grew up in America and now I live in Israel, so the biggest thing for me is the language and the accent and how do you pronounce certain things. And for example, our son we don't call him David, right? And David is like the anglicized version. We call him David. David is the Hebrew version, and how Hebrew Israelis pronounce the name. And the first prime minister of Israel was not David Ben Gurion, but David Ben Gurion. And David actually in Hebrew means beloved. And so even a slight, nuance in terms of pronunciation, or for example, our capital city, the center of the apple of God's eye, right? The apple of God's eye is not Jerusalem, it's Yerushalayim, which has a whole different meaning in Hebrew. It's Yah means to see, right? Jeru is like a Latin kind of translation. And so that, I think, when I was thinking about it, and how to be authentic, but at the same time, it's a balancing act. And if you get it right, and I know that this team is going to get it right, you're going to strike that right balance. And if you get it right, it's going to be such a gift to the Jewish people, because wow, somebody actually really cares what we think, but really a gift to the whole world. Because what pains me in working with Christians is how, unfortunately, so many Christians are from the Hebrew text, and it's like night and day. Can you imagine reading, reading the Bible in a translation of a translation of a translation? It's, to some extent, it's a 2,000-year game of broken telephone, And so by reading, but when you start to be authentic and try to uncover the Hebrew roots of the Bible, it is mind-boggling. You start connecting things that you never saw before, and I think that all of the viewers of this video, of the movie, are going to appreciate what you're doing by making it authentic.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Linton, keep going. I think you've got another question or a Trivial Pursuit question about a color, but I don't know if you want to go there yet, or if you've got another question.
Well, just to touch on, yeah, you're so right. It is absolutely a balancing act, because we're, as Phil mentioned earlier, why animation, that adds its own challenges when telling a story like this, because there are elements in David's story that we can't really touch on. How do we depict David and Goliath and the battle scene and all those kind of things that are mentioned in the Bible in an appropriate way for kids, so there's lots of challenges that we have to balance, but we always strive, and that's why we specifically use the word authenticity, because we're always trying to be authentic to the meaning of the scriptures, and to do our best to be that way, but not in a way that will inhibit the story. So you're right, that is one of the biggest challenges, and I'm so thankful to have expert advisors like yourself, because when I see the team that God is pulling together on this production, it really encourages me that it's His plan and it's His purpose that we're aiming for, and that we'll get it right because He's in control. So very thankful for that. And the Trivial Pursuit question is just to say, like, one example of authenticity that's come up as well through our research is there's a specific color that is mentioned in the Bible called Tchelet blue, and it's the Israel blue, and it's something that's definitely come into our look of film guide. It's a special color to God, it's a special color to the people of Israel, and we are going to be using it as a symbolic color in our portrayal of things. I won't give any spoilers now as to how we're going to use it, but could you explain just a little bit about Tchelet blue and it's the traditional significance of this color to the Jewish people?
Yeah,
can I just
absolutely.
read this comment?
Thank you.
Can I just read this comment for you, Rabbi, at the bottom from Vicky Stewart? It says, I'm an investor in the David movie, but also a proud owner of the Israel Bible and longtime supporter of Israel 365. So I'm very happy to see Rabbi Tuly become part of this movie. So thanks, Vicky. I appreciate that
Awesome.
message.
So nice. Thank you, Vicky.
Yeah, but sorry, Rabbi, back to the question.
Well, I bet Vicky could answer this question. If she's a longtime supporter of Israel 365, she knows that the Tchelet blue comes from the book of Numbers, chapter 16, verse, 15, verse 38. Let me say that again. Numbers, chapter 15, verse 38. And it says that God says to Moses, speak to the children of Israel. I'm reading from the Israel Bible. Vicky, you can open up to page 374 in the Israel Bible. Speak to the children of Israel. Instruct them to make for themselves fringes on the corners of the garments throughout the ages. Let them attach a cord of blue on the fringe of each corner. Now, without totally getting undressed here for you, but I'll show you that I am actually wearing under my clothing a garment, a special garment, which we call the tzitzit. That's what it says here in Hebrew, the tzitzit. And at the corner, I don't know if you could see it here, I have I'm going to have to back up, sorry. There you go. I have a corner, there's strings here, okay, can you see? You have to, when you come to Israel, I'll show you the real thing. But we wear these under our clothing till this very day. Like, since God instructed Moses, right? We obey the law and we take it literally. And so we wear these strings under our clothing every day. And what's amazing is that it says a blue cord. And, my father didn't have a blue cord. My grandfather, David, Rabbi David did not have a blue cord. It was lost since biblical times, since the times of King David. We lost the recipe, the tradition, where this blue even comes from. And it's a big deal in the Bible, but the Bible ended at a certain point. And when the Jews were kicked out of the land of Israel, right? That's then it went into exile, and that's basically how the Bible ends. And so we lost a lot of our authenticity until, thank God, the Jewish people listened to William Blackstone, listen to the word of God from the Bible, listen to, God really blessed Israel to come back to Israel. And when we did, we became like a fish in water. We were a fish out of water. We became a fish in water. One of the amazing discoveries that a lot of great Jewish scientists and researchers and biblical scholars discovered for the first time in thousands of years was exactly how to recreate the biblical blue. And they found the snail that lives off the coast of Haifa, and and they realized that that's an ancient snail, and they found pottery, linton, like the pottery that you showed us before, where they had residue, and they could, with DNA testing, match up the residue that they found to the snail. And they, after lots of trial and error, right, there you go, after lots of trial and error and modern technology, they were able to reproduce this ancient blue, this royal blue, this biblical blue for the first time in thousands of years. And it's a great symbol. The blue is a great symbol of God's heart for Israel, God's heart for David, like you said, Phil, but God's heart for Israel. And so I'm so happy that you're going to be featuring the blue. You might ask, well, Tuly, if the blue is such a big deal, why aren't you wearing it on your tzitzit? And the answer is that because it's sort of so special, I save it for Shabbat. I wear it on Saturdays only because it's sort of like, it's not really like my father didn't wear it because he didn't have it. It's new. And so, the Jewish people were kind of slow to adapt to certain things, but I wear it on Shabbat. During the week, I just, kind of use the family tradition.
Oh, I love it. That's so good.
That's so amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
And
we were absolutely so excited. Yeah. Sorry.
No, you go, Linton. No, go, Linton. You go.
Yeah. We were so excited to visit the Temple Institute when we were in Jerusalem as well, and we got to actually buy ourselves a tzitzit, I think it's correct, forgive my pronunciation, but with the actual tchelet blue cords in it. So we actually have a accurate reference of that color so we can incorporate it. And if you look at the art of David and the depictions of David, you'll notice that they're all wearing the tassels with the correct color. And we're just so excited to be able to follow these threads of research and where they lead to really special things like that. So
I like that, Linton, to follow the threads. Very good.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's very good.
Sorry.
Excuse the pun. Quick question for our behind the scenes team. Are there any questions that have been coming up during the live stream that you guys would like to post up for us to look at? And I think there are a few questions. Hopefully they're for the rabbi, not for us, Linton, so we can. Okay, so it's not for the rabbi, that's for us. Okay, so quickly to answer that question, the movie will come out. The goal is if we continue to be financed as we're hoping to be, then the movie would come out in the Q1 or Q2 of 2025. And that, I was just saying it earlier on the live stream, that might seem a long time, but an animated feature film typically takes 4 to 7 years to make. We have got probably would finish the movie in 24 and then release the movie in 25. And for those of you who join, you can go to angel.com/David. It can tell you a lot more it'll give you a lot more information on the movie. But if you do join, it's going to be a beautiful journey and a beautiful adventure together. So the one thing about an animated feature, although it takes time, it gives us time to get to know each other, to build a community, to go on a journey together. And the thing I love about animated films, they last many of you have watched The Lion King, which was, decades ago. And then there's movies like that we just know live on. Regardless of supporting you financially, how else can we support you? So, for me, I'd say the biggest answer I'd give to that is prayer. And maybe I'll stop there because I can think of other ways. But I think prayer and then just spreading the word, showing our social media pages, the TikTok pages, the Instagram page, spreading the word, telling the story, and every community can grow. But primarily, I'd say prayer is the biggest way, because I'm a huge believer that the Lord is our shepherd, that He is leading this project, and that's why prayer is the most critical thing on this, most critical aspect to this journey. Yeah. I hope someone's got a hard question for the rabbi out there. we can't have a great mind on a live stream like this and let them off lightly. But let's see. Maybe there's no more questions. Are there any more questions for the backstage team, or is that the questions? Okay, no more questions for now. The one thing I just want to end off saying, and then we'll probably, Rabbi, just end off by showing the demo. Before I say thank you, just going back to that word authenticity. So one thing we can't do is bore people to death. We've got to entertain, because story is, if you look through human history, is the most incredibly powerful thing that moves society, moves culture, moves hearts, and inspires people. And so we really want to tell the story in an energetic, a vibrant, a wonderful way. Just really want to communicate it with the streamers. But I want to talk about comic book fans, because comic book fans are passionate about their comic book heroes. You can't take Superman's cape and put it on Spider-Man. There's certain rules as a comic book fan you can't break. And what I want to say is why I'm so excited that Rabbi, and by connection to the Jewish community, is on board, because if comic book fans are that passionate, imagine Christians and imagine the Jewish people. Like, there's much more passion behind the text of David and the story of David than there is behind Spider-Man and Superman. And if people take Spider-Man and Superman seriously, we really want to treat a story like David, which is huge to the Jewish community and huge to the Christian community, with authenticity. So, Rabbi, I just want to say, I know we're going to go on a long journey together. We've got so many things to discuss and learn from you and from the community. I'm going over to Israel soon to meet Rabbi for the next trip, to connect with you. But just thank you for being willing to connect with the Christian community and with filmmakers. We're just so excited and just really appreciate your willingness to participate and share your knowledge, which just comes after so many years of studying. So a big thank you from us. And Linton, I don't know if you want to, I know you're super excited as well, Linton. I don't know if you want to add anything for the rabbi before we close.
Just to echo and to say thank you so much, and so excited to work with you and the time to come, and just to really kind of grow together in this project. So I'm very thankful for your involvement, and thank you for reaching out to us.
Yeah. Well, and Rabbi, anything you'd like to say to...
No, it's such an honor. I want to just, I can't let this end without acknowledging that today in Israel, and especially for those who are watching in the United States, who it's still the daytime, it's a very somber day in Israel. Actually, it's known as Yom HaShoah, which is the Holocaust Memorial Day. It's the Memorial Day for the 6 million victims of the Holocaust. And so many people in Israel, have relatives. My own, my grandmother, who's still alive, is a Holocaust survivor. And but there's only 150,000 survivors alive today. When I moved to Israel, it was well over 200,000. And so, unfortunately, every year the Holocaust survivors are getting older, and we're losing them. And so there's sort of this. We're living under the shadow very much till this very day. And that's why, again, as I was thinking about this live stream, and it just means so much to me that how this film is, like you said, Phil, in the beginning, it's not a movie, or it's not just a movie, but it's a movement. And I just pray that God blesses the team here and the effort of all of the good people who are watching this and who are supporting the film to continue to do God's work, and to continue to show respect for one another, and to ultimately bring about what the purpose of the Bible, and the purpose of God's plan, the purpose of King David's kingdom, and working together, Jews and Christians, is really a blessing. So thank you for this big opportunity.
Thank you. No, we're looking forward to
Thank
taking
you.
on the giant and Goliath together. And thank you for sharing that about what today means in Israel. Thank you for that. We appreciate that. You'll be in our thoughts. And thank you. We just got a note there saying there were $3,000 that came in pledges during the live stream. So thank you so much. We really appreciate that. And I know this is going to be an amazing adventure together. So let's keep watching the space. You'll definitely see Rabbi again on this journey. So thank you, Rabbi. And we're going to end by just showing the demo one more time for those who joined the live stream late. So thank you. And for those of you in the States, have a good day. For those of you in Israel and in Africa and this time zone, have a good evening. And in Asia, I'm sure you're asleep already. Cheers, everyone. Thanks, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Shalom. Bye-bye.
Shalom.
Look into my eyes. Do you see fear? You come at me with sword and spear, but I come in the name of the God of Israel.
Yes! Right between the eyes! Did you see that? Anyone? Of course not. Okay, then. One more time. Tally, not now! I'm trying to protect us from this Philistine. Whoa! No, not that way. Come on. Back to your mom. Right, Philistine. Oh, wait! Right between the eyes. Oh, of course. That one you saw. Tally! Tally, no! I'm coming, girl! Whoa, easy! Shira! I will bring her home safely. Whoa! Hey, whoa, Tally, wait, no! There you go. I'm almost through. Okay. Oh! Tally, stop! No! Oh, that doesn't help. That does. Stop. Thank you. Yena, Mashiach Yeshove Yancheni B'mgalet Tzedek Leman Shemo.
What you have just watched is a concept short for a musical animated feature film on the story of David, and our vision is to tell it in the same quality as movies like Tangled and Frozen. This is more than a movie. This is a movement to join people from all over the world to try and make the world's most watched animated theatrical release. You can show your interest in investing by going to angel.com/David. Growing up in the wild of Africa was the most incredible experience, and it was there that I bumped into the most amazing character of God and fell in love with him. At the same time, I was reading David's story, and it just really struck me. On one particular canoe trip on the Zambezi River, where you could canoe for days and not see a human being, I was reading the scriptures and I read, "I found in David, son of Jesse, a man after my own heart." And I thought how amazing it would be to do a film that would give people all over the world a glimpse into God's heart. We grew up on a farm that had no electricity. I only saw my first film when I was 14 years old, and it was such an electric experience. I was blown away by the power of film and the power of story to connect with people and move people. And from that day, I became passionate to tell a story on the life of David. The question is, can a group of farmers from Africa make a global hit that's going to reach the world? This is in and of itself an incredible David versus Goliath story.
There's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And in order to tell a story as big as David, we need people from all around the world to come together.
Over the last 20 years, Jackie and I have just been blown away by how God has miraculously drawn talent to us. Now we have the most awesome, high-quality team.
Like Nathan Stanton, who spent 22 years at Pixar, Jonas Myron, a Grammy Award-winning musician, Borja Mentora, a Disney animation alumni, other talent from massive films like Big Hero 6, Tangled, Finding Nemo, Zootopia, Moana, Prince of Egypt, and many more.
Our first breakout hit is Jungle Beat, an incredible and beautiful show. On our YouTube channel, we get over 2 billion views a year. We've got 7 million subscribers. We also recently released our first animated feature film called Jungle Beat the Movie. And incredibly, it was on Netflix's top 10 for over 2 weeks, both live action and animated feature films in the US. We are also doing a theatrical release of Jungle Beat the Movie in China later this year, and are in production of Jungle Beat the Movie 2. What really excites me is if you take Jungle Beat the Movie, we produced that for $5 million. And I'd really encourage you to go and watch it on Netflix to see the quality of movie we produce for that price. And just imagine the quality of movie we could produce on David with the proper budget. With David, we considered the route of engaging with Hollywood, and there is significant interest down that route. But we really felt that from a creative point of view, we need to stay the head and not the tail of this project. And it's a slingshot, like David went with a slingshot to fight Goliath. We really believe that the strategy needs to be outside the Hollywood system for it to work. In this vein, we are thrilled to be working with Angel Studios for distribution. Angel Studios did the TV series The Chosen, which has become the world's biggest TV series on the life of Jesus Christ. The Chosen has generated hundreds of millions of views and tens of millions of dollars. We've already got $19 million of investments and need another $35 million to complete this project. We need your help to bring God's heart to the world through the story of David. Go to angel.com/David to show your support for this project now. And let's join together to try and make the world's most watched animated theatrical release.